Hey guys, Jake Carlson here, host of the Modern Leadership Podcast. Are you ready to focus on amplifying your leadership superpowers? Let's go! Good morning, my friends and fellow elite achievers. Welcome to Modern Leadership, the podcast where each week we sit down with authors, entrepreneurs, and leaders to explore their journey, diving into the ups, their downs, and ultimately the lessons they learned along the way. Our goal, of course, is to show that everything is figure-outable. And today's guest expert is Jonathan Kaiser. Jonathan is the inspiring founder and thought leader behind Kaiser, Arizona's largest commercial real estate brokerage firm. Under his guidance, Kaiser has become one of the fastest growing CRE firms in the country, largely driven by his disruptive focus on selfless service as a key to success. He's also the author of the brand new best-selling book, You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win. And today he is our guest expert. Jonathan, welcome to Modern Leadership. How are you?
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on your podcast. I appreciate what you're doing for the greater good within the business world. And I'm honored to be a part. Just one quick clarification. We're the largest commercial real estate firm of our kind in the state. There's obviously the big behemoths out there that are big global firms, but we're the largest occupier services firm in Arizona and one of the faster growing in the country.
Well, and congratulations on that, but even bigger congratulations being in the content creation space. I love that your book just hit best-selling. You're having a great experience with that. Tell us a little bit about Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win.
Sure, yeah, and it's a surreal feeling, honestly, Jake. You never know if people are going to care about your story, you know? And so my book, You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win, which I'm holding a copy in my hands right now, just hit. I was blown away that we hit number one on Amazon in 7, I think, categories globally. And it's the whole point of the book is the mission that we're up to at Kaiser, which is to transform business by proving that you don't have to be ruthless to be successful. So the beginning of it tells a little bit about my story, and then I walk into how we've built a firm like we've built around the principles and how people can recreate themselves and their organizations around selfless leadership.
Well, and I want to dive in a little bit about this word ruthless, because I think, especially in the real estate world, I think that there's this thought or this belief that you kind of have to be a little bit ruthless to win. And you're saying, of course, that you don't. I believe that wholeheartedly. But let's talk about this word ruthless, what it means and what it doesn't mean, because I don't think what you're saying is you don't have to be competitive. I think you're not saying that you don't have to have goals and really stick to what you're trying to do. So tell us about that.
Sure. Well, it might help to give you a little bit of context. I mean, how I got to where I'm at today is an interesting journey. I was raised by parents who taught me to love and serve and give and help. The problem was we were poor. And Jake, I hated being poor. So as a young lad, I said, I'm not going to be poor. I'm going to be rich. And so I got into commercial real estate brokerage because I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be successful. And as soon as I got in, I realized really quickly, wow, this is a ruthless industry. And everybody was scratching and clawing and fighting and, lying and cheating and stealing. And I said, okay, if this is what it takes to be successful, I'm going to do that. Because again, I didn't want to be poor like my parents. But along the way, I lost myself. And I hated who I was becoming. And it's sort of like the frog in the water where you're slowly turning up the heat. It's not like you're intentionally one day just deciding to be a jerk, but over time, I really became that. But I was miserable and I hated who I was becoming, but I felt trapped. I didn't feel like there was a different way. I wanted the success, I wanted the money, and I didn't feel like there was a way to be successful without behaving in that fashion. And then 15 years ago, I go to this conference and this guy gets up and he starts talking about success by helping other people, and I was blown away, and I'd never heard anything like it. So I went up to him and I said, is that really something that is true? Or is that just something you say to people to sound cool? And he said, no, this is really what I've done. And I said, well, how is that possible? And it was cool. He compared it to hunting versus farming. He said, today, Jonathan, you're a hunter. You grab your gun off the shelf, you go shoot your prey, skin it, eat it, cook it, eat it, and then you have to get up tomorrow and do it all over again. He said, what I'm describing is farming. It's like you plant citrus trees, and in their early years, they're delicate and they don't produce any fruit, and you have to water them and nurture them. But over time, they turn into these big trees that rain down on you. I have a lemon tree in my backyard here in Arizona that when it was little, I couldn't get anything out of it. And today, it's almost a nuisance. I get so many lemons out of it.
Well, they say you only need one lemon tree per neighborhood out here in Arizona, because when they fruit, they really fruit, don't they?
Oh, man, they do. They sure do. So that I was so moved and inspired, Jake, by that message that I decided to reinvent myself. And I reinvented myself. It was a long, hard road. But I just started helping everybody I could in the community. And the more people I helped, the more people started to appreciate. And over time, people started to refer business to me just because I'd helped them. And then that grew and grew and grew until I finally realized in 2012 that I had this epiphany moment where I realized that what I was up to was bigger than me. It was bigger than my team at a traditional firm, and that I had the actual opportunity to transform an industry and to show that even in an industry as ruthless and cutthroat as commercial real estate brokerage, you truly didn't have to be ruthless to win, and you could just love and serve and help people, and over time create extraordinary success. So I decided to start my own firm, launched it in January of 2013, and today, we just hit the Inc. 5000 list. There's just so many amazing things happening, but it's a testament to the fact that, people are craving a different way of doing business. People are sick and tired of having to deal with people that are not trustworthy, that are just looking out for themselves, and that, aren't pushing much value across the table. And so we aim to change that. So to long story answer your question, for me, I believe that the greatest business principle of all time is selfless service, and that this ruthless behavior, this always having to look over your shoulder, this striking before struck, this talking clients into deals that make you bigger commission but aren't necessarily in their best interest, to stealing leads off of other people's desks, to trying to overhear conversations so you can figure out who the client is so you can go try to steal them, on and on and on. All that behavior actually, in my opinion, undermines long-term success versus creates it. And so that's our mission, that's our message, and that's what we're taking to the world.
Yeah, and I love it. And I want to take you back because I want to talk to you about this time when you transitioned from being a hunter to a farmer, because your goal, your drive up until that point was really financial success. It was really making sure that you weren't poor. But the day you decided, I'm no longer going to be a hunter, I'm going to be a farmer, all of a sudden you don't yield crop that very first time, right? So there was a transition period where I would imagine your income went down. You may have been a little bit nervous about kind of the future. And how did you, from a mindset standpoint, stay with this new dream, this new passion, this new belief, and not slide back into the old way of doing it, your old habits and your old style?
Man, that is a great question. So one of the things, when I heard this speaker, one of the things that I did when I went up to him afterwards is I asked him a question. I said, if this really works, how come nobody else that I've ever heard of is doing it?
Great question.
What he said was profound. He said, it's because it takes too long. And I said, well, what do you mean by takes too long? He said, it'll take you 4.5 to 5 years of selflessly helping other people before you will have done it. And he goes, and that's if you work ridiculously hard before you start seeing others really in a meaningful way helping you back that it provides you with the income that you need. And so for most people, that's too long of a period. Now, I was fortunate in two senses. Number one, I'm just crazy enough to not give up. right? And so there was many times when it got hard. I mean, the entire world thought I was crazy. Here I was, National Rookie of the Year for Grubb and Ellis. People thought I was on the fast track, and then all of a sudden they figure I'd like hit my head. I'm out like I was acting like I was just helping everybody in the community, like a free community concierge, and people are like, dude, I don't know what happened to that guy. Like he was cranking, and all of a sudden he's talking about service and helping people get jobs and all this weird stuff. So I don't know what he's doing. So there was a lot of that critique that was hard. But I was honestly, I felt like I was losing myself, Jake. If I'm being 100% candid, I felt like I was losing myself to the ruthlessness that I was behaving like. And I felt so miserable inside that the idea that I actually didn't have to do that, and I could do this a different way by just helping others and doing the right thing, and having integrity in my business was so exciting that I refused to quit. Also, having, if nobody else had ever done it, I don't know if I would have had the endurance to do it, which is part of why I wrote this book. This book is, sure, it's about a commercial real estate broker and how he built a commercial real estate firm, but this is a much broader book. This is a book for business leaders. This is a book to teach you specifically as a leader how to create a culture of selfless service within your organization, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because I believe it actually creates more financial success, and that's what we've proven here at our firm. So this whole idea of success through service originated in the meeting. It took me kind of coming through the fire and enduring 5 years of lack of results, no external validation that what I was doing was working, and a lot of critique. But on the other side, now we have one more example of that this can be possible. And so my whole point with the book is to motivate other people that are in whatever respective business they're in and saying, man, that guy sounds crazy. I just listened to this amazing podcast, and Jake had this guy, Jonathan Kaiser, on, and he's talking this crazy talk about how he's created success through service. What I tried to do in this book is I've had people say this is the most brave book I've ever read. I mean, I am very, very self-scathing about what I used to do and what the industry is like. But then I lay everything out that I've learned on how you can create a selfless culture within your organization for yourself. And so, this is not the guideline, but this is one very clear guideline for how I did it, my path, and how you can do it too.
Well, and we follow that here on Modern Leadership. I mean, we're big fans of Zig Ziglar, and you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And our goal, aside from finding out that everything is figure outable, which is our ultimate goal of the podcast, but also, the more people we help, financial success is just a gauge of how many people that we've been able to help. And so I love this. Now, I love what you're talking about, this period of 4 to 5 years. And it reminded me of a story that the great Dr. Covey talked about, and that is the Chinese bamboo. Are you familiar with that, Jonathan?
I am not.
Oh, you'll love this then, because this is exactly what you just taught us. The Chinese bamboo is very interesting. When it's planted for 4 or 5 years, you don't see anything. And then in year 5, it shoots up 80 feet in 1 year. And there's this thought, right, that it grew 80 feet in 1 year. But the reality is it spent 4 years building a foundation, interwoven roots with all the other plants and trees around it, so that when it shot up 80 feet, it had the stability, it had the foundation to not just fall over or flop over. And so what you're talking about is not a fast road to wealth, but it is a long-term road to wealth that's actually going to be 80 feet higher than what these small plants of instant wealth are. And I love the analogy of farming and Chinese bamboo that we've gone down in this podcast. Jonathan, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, okay, you've been truly authentic and vulnerable in your book, even on this podcast, and you talk about ways that we are what things that get in the way of us living our true values. So take us down that. Let's talk about some things that get in the way of us being authentic, vulnerable, or living our true values.
I love that. One, I think, is fear, right? Like, people live in a state of fear, and I think that's sad. I think it's unnecessary, and I think that it prevents people from their own potential great future. So that'd be the first thing.
Well, and when we talk about fear, I want to ask you about one aspect of fear, because your story, there was this fear of being poor, and I understand that, and I think our listeners can relate to wanting to be financially successful and the doors of opportunity that opens. But talk to us a little bit about this fear of what other people are going to say or think about us if we go down this servant leadership path.
Yeah, that's a great point, because, for me, having been, I was never in the club. I never was from the right neighborhood. I didn't go to the right school. I wasn't in a country club. So I was always an outlier as a kid anyways. But I think a lot of people that were raised with a group of friends and then they get into whatever business they're in, it's a little bit of a fraternity. I think that there's a lot of pressure to be like everybody else. And part of this methodology is willingness to be quite different, I mean, there were a lot of people that literally thought I had fallen and hit my head, or I had had a mental breakdown or something, because they couldn't believe that I was still in commercial real estate and I was walking around talking about helping people and loving and serving and getting involved in the community. So yes, I agree. There's a certain willingness to be different, and most people are too afraid to be different, right? Most people want to be like everyone else. I don't. I want to be who I was created to be. And in my opinion, that is to be a unique individual versus to try to be like everybody else. But I agree, that's a significant pressure that most people feel. And at the end of the day, it's embedded in fear.
And I think a lot of us feel like we're in the whack-a-mole game, and we're afraid that if we stick our head up, someone's going to mack us down with a mallet. And what we need to realize is standing up amongst our competitors, standing up amongst our colleagues is really the way to really change the tide. You talk about with Kaiser, you wanted to not just be a successful company, you wanted to change the way that business was done. You wanted to change the way that people approached commercial real estate. And that's really taken this stand of saying, look, I might get bonked with a mallet, but I'm willing to stand up for what I believe in and really represent those around me who are too fearful to stand up.
Beautifully stated. Yes, I completely agree. And I think, our mission at Kaiser, it's even broader now than commercial real estate. When I started it was we're going to transform and reimagine and reinvent the commercial real estate industry through selfless service. Today, it's we want to change the business world through selfless service and prove definitively that even in an industry as ruthless and predatorial as commercial real estate brokerage, that you don't have to be ruthless to win, hence the title of my book. And I think that there's a broader message, right? The broader message is here's what I think gets lost, Jake. And I think this is something that's worth distinguishing, which is everybody knows at some level that helping other people is a good idea. And sure. I think everybody sort of even knows that if you help a bunch of people, they might help you back. Like it's not like this is a new idea, but for whatever reason, we do this in our family lives. We do this with our kids. We do this in our social circles. But then when we get into business, we shift. We do a 180-degree shift. We put on our tough suit and we feel like we have to go be ruthless and take no prisoners and fight. And all I'm trying to do is say, look, I'm not saying do the right thing because it's the right thing. I mean, you should already know that. I'm not a preacher. I'm here to say, look, here I am in an industry known for ruthless behavior. I'm not behaving ruthlessly. I'm having incredible success. You can too, right? It's success through service, not, give and go broke. Mm-hmm. It's create success by giving. I think that the connection between extraordinary financial rewards and helping as many people as possible, while it's in the kind of the ideology of the world, I don't think it's being practiced. And so what I'm trying to do is show in this book and show with Kaiser that you really can do it. And here's everything you need to know. Like if you're listening and you have a company or you're thinking about starting a company or you're an executive at a company and you say, man, I wish our culture was like that. Guess what? Everything you need to know is in my book. And I'm not saying everything in the world you need to know, but everything that I have learned in my 20 years, I have put into this book to help you, the reader, really be able to do this for yourself. And so that's the vision. It's like, it's not about trying to go get a bunch of clients for my firm. We have more clients than we can handle. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help the world see this is real, this is possible, and you can too. You can do this as well, regardless of the industry that you're in.
And this has been kind of a mindset or a personal transformation that you've been on, and we've heard it as you've talked through it, but now I want to ask you specifically about it. So 15 years ago, you hear this speaker, the speaker says, hey, there's another way to be successful. You personally, you had an individual interest in kind of changing your business style practice. It was more congruent with who you are. And so you started to make this change, but the goal of making this change was to have inner peace and also to be successful. But now that you've seen that success, you've shifted to this desire for significance, success to significance. And the reason that I feel so confident in saying this, Jonathan, is because now your mission isn't just to be a good person with a profitable business. Now you're telling us that your goal is to take this selfless service idea, this concept, this belief, and share it with other businesses and help them go on this journey too. And I want to take you to that point, that transition point from when you went from being, I want to be successful for myself, to I want to share this so that others can be successful as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is such a beautiful question. So I'll tell you about the epiphany moment because I think it will resonate with your audience. So I was frustrated is the best word I can say it. I was frustrated with the fact that here I was, I went from laughing stock in the last company I was at to top producer. And as top producer, it became more and more apparent to me that my embrace of this methodology was not well received. It's not like once I became successful doing this, people stopped mocking me. If anything, it got worse because then, them telling me for 5 years this would never work and laughing at me once I was producing almost made it harder. And so here I was frustrated because I was trying my hardest to build this successful practice and grow it within a traditional firm, but I was being constrained. And so I was thinking, man, even though all I'm trying to do is just put this forward, it's still got resistance everywhere. And I was also thinking like, man, I've felt like this is so amazing. I wish other people could see this for themselves. And so that was kind of the mindset. So I went away for the weekend and I went away. One of the places, as you know, that's a great spot for self-reflection here in Arizona is a place called Sedona. So I went up to Sedona and I got up early in the morning. The first day I was there, I went down to the spa, down to the hot tub, and nobody was around. It was early in the morning and the sun was just coming up and it was like a gentle little snowfall coming down on my head. And I was sitting there quiet in the hot tub, staring at the mountains, just meditating and thinking. And all of a sudden it hit me. And it was like, not like words came on my head, but kind of like the thought hit me. Jonathan, you're thinking way too small. And I was like, really? I said, another thought hit me, which was, you actually have the opportunity. If you could teach other people how to do this, you could create an extraordinary impact on the entire commercial real estate industry. And my first thought to that thought was, that's ridiculous. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm just a commercial real estate broker trying to make some money, right? And yeah, I like the way I'm doing it, but I'm not a CEO. I'm not some thought leader that's going to go change the world. I'm just a broker. And the thought right after that was, if not you, then who? And in that moment, Jake, I still get the chills. I had the chills right now. They just hit me. In that moment, all of this crazy upbringing that I had, all the hard things that I'd gone through and all the pain from rejection at my old firm and all the things that happened all became clear in that moment. And I realized that all that had prepared me for this next step. And I was just overwhelmed with a sense of purpose. I was overwhelmed with this sense of mission. And I said, by golly, I'm going to go change the world. And I literally haven't wavered since. I mean, that was the moment when I decided what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And, I didn't even have a firm yet. I didn't have even a thought of a book yet, but it was like, this is what I'm going to do. And from that level of determination, the crazy part is I thought that 80% of people would think I was crazy and that 20% of people would maybe think I was up to something cool. And I've actually found it to be the opposite. Most people are, as we've been brave and wore our hearts on our sleeves and, the founders and I starting this firm, it was extraordinary. We put words out there that were unheard of in commercial real estate. We actually used the word love on our website and on and on and on. And to watch the response, it's been nothing short of extraordinary, right? From, one of the fastest growing companies in the country to, best-selling book to top company of our kind in the state. And we're just getting started. I just brought on a leader who's going to be helping us, really start to open up offices in all major markets. So that's part of what I'm doing with the book too, is I think there's a lot of brokers out there. I think there's a lot of people in commercial real estate that feel trapped. They feel like they like the industry, they're good at it, but they hate the fact that they got to live within a traditional culture that's ruthless. And so I wrote the book for them. We're looking to open up offices for people to read it and say, wow, I want to be a part of that. Call us, right? Same thing as with other CEOs, executives at any kind of business, any kind of firm that have a relationship with a broker but are sick of a traditional relationship and wish something could be better. We're here to help them. That's the point of this firm is, what if you could actually have a relationship with a broker where you actually trusted them implicitly and they had their best interest at heart and they always put you first. It doesn't even exist in today's world until we created it, right? And then the third is for the Kaiser Institute. We are, a lot of people already have reached out following reading this book and said, Jonathan, we need more. This is great, but we want help. How do you help take us to the next level? And so we've created a bunch of different resources. If you go to ruthlessbook.com, you can get a bunch of free resources. And we're also launching the Kaiser Institute, which will have all kinds of courseworks and online training and workshops to help organizations and leaders do this for themselves. And then the ultimate goal, we haven't finalized this yet, but this is what we're working on. The ultimate goal is to create a certification process where people in the future will be Kaiser certified, and that'll stand for being a selfless culture warrior. So when they get Kaiser certified, and they'll view it kind of like, like you wear an MBA or a CPA or, a black belt in Six Sigma. It'll be something that shows that you're qualified and you know how to do this so that we can really affect change in the market. So long question or long answer to short question later, for me, it was that moment when I had the epiphany that I was actually capable and that I was actually worthy and that I was actually uniquely prepared to actually have this kind of significant effect in a marketplace. Because I love the commercial real estate industry. I'm trying to save it. I'm not trying to blow it up. I want to save it. In today's world, if you're not pushing more value across the table to everyone around you than you're getting in return,
yeah, you're going to be obsolete super quickly.
Your days are numbered, man. And so then you look at commercial real estate brokerage and they're doing the opposite. They're trying to push as little value across the table. And I'm going, guys, you're missing it. There's a better way and you can get rich doing it.
Yeah. And this is really the story of a job becoming a career, becoming a mission, becoming a calling. And really, this isn't just limited to the commercial real estate business. This can be your industry. This can be your business. Look at the principles that we've been walking through here. This idea of serving other people, of really focusing on not what's in it for me, but what can I offer to those around me? Think about this story of creating a farm, planting, cultivating, growing your business that's sustainable, that's continuous. Now, Jonathan, I love this conversation and I'd love to keep going, but alas, our time is just about over. So let's shift gears for a minute. And I want to find out a few things about you, like what you're reading and your leadership superpower in a section we call Learning from Leaders. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, rapid fire for you. What is the book currently on your bedside table?
The Hard Things About Hard Things.
Very nice. How about your leadership superpower?
You know what? I looked at all the superpowers pretty closely, and I feel like I'm 4 out of 5 of them. I don't know how to pick. There's one that I'm certainly not, but what would you say after talking with me?
So what you're talking about is the 5 leadership superpowers from our assessment online. The 5 are confidence, inspirational, adaptability, accountability, and problem solving. And here's the thing. Most leaders, especially podcast guests, tend to have a very strong inspirational in them, because when you look at what you're trying to do, you're trying to not just keep inside you your success, but disseminate it out to the world. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you would probably be very strong in the inspiration, if not the adaptability segment.
I'm in. I love it. That sounds good to me.
Very nice. All right. Our next question then is a philosophy quote or mantra, something that you live by.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. I believe that selfless service is the greatest business principle of all time. So saying that one more time, I truly believe that selfless service is the greatest business principle of all time.
And don't overlook the word principle. It's not just a philosophy or an idea. This is an absolute principle that you can build your foundation on. So I love it. Our final question then is the book that you most often gift or refer to other people to read.
Well, lately, because of because of my new book, it's been mine. But one of my favorite books in the world, I have so many, but one of them is Conscious Capitalism by my good friend, John Mackey, who really talks through how capitalism can really take into account more than just the shareholders. And it's exciting to see that more and more CEOs are adopting that. But it's really thanks to him and Raj, their hard work in putting this together and creating this. So that's the one I give out the most, probably.
All right, Jonathan, before we let you go, I want to ask you one last question and then tell us how we can find out more about you. The question is this: why do you pursue intentional imbalance in your life?
I think, it's a great question. I think most people view balance as the goal. I think balance is a recipe for being mediocre in a bunch of different things. I'm an incredibly focused individual, as you probably can tell from just being on the call. And everything that I want to do is summarized within a couple very important things. And so I'm not driven to have a bunch of different hobbies or things. You know, for me, it's my family's most important. I have 4 kids and a beautiful wife that I love. And that's the priority for me. And then very close behind that is this impact mission of mine to change the business world. And then, of course, there's taking care of my health in there as well. But outside of that, you know, it's like I want to take all of my energy and pour it into, we only have so much time. We only have so much energy. And so I want to be intentionally imbalanced, making sure that I'm spending my time and energies on the things that matter most versus feeling like I have to go do a bunch of diverse things just to say I'm balanced.
Yeah, very cool. And then how can we find out more about you? Obviously, ruthlessbook.com, but where else?
Yeah, Kaiser.com, KEYSER.com. If you're a broker looking for a new option that is inspired by this, download my book. You know, you don't have to be ruthless to win on ruthlessbook.com. You can get it on Amazon. It'll be out on Audible here in a couple weeks. We have an e-version. We have a hard copy, soft copy. There should be every way that you want to read this should be available. And, you know, if we can help you in any way, you know, that's always my mantra is how can I help you? So if there's anybody listening that says, hey, I wonder if this guy, Jonathan Kaiser, can help me, reach out, go to ruthlessbook.com and let's see what we can do.
We're going to link all of that up on the show notes. Jonathan, this has been an inspiring episode. I've loved the conversation. Your journey, your mission, your calling is just tremendous. Thank you for being this week's guest expert.
Thanks for having me on, Jake.
All right, my friends, and a big thank you to Jonathan. It's always fun to have local people that are just up the street. You know, Jonathan and I, we didn't know each other prior to this episode. I actually, before preparing for this, didn't even know that he lived up the street, but it was great to connect, and I'm looking forward to heading up to his office. He and I are going to go and catch lunch or do something in a little bit here. Just a great leader. And just a great, genuine individual. Such a pleasure and privilege to have him on the podcast. Of course, everything that we talked about can be found on the show notes for this episode, found at jakeacarlson.com/ML146, episode 146. And until next week, I want to wish you the very best of days, an even better life. And remember, everything is figure-outable. Thanks for listening to the Modern Leadership Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at Speaker Jake, on Twitter at Jake A. Carlson, and of course the website, jakeacarlson.com. See you there.